Hello, and welcome to our video audio podcast, Couched in Color. I'm your mental health expert, teen and young adult crusader, and psychological scientist, Dr. Alfie. This podcast reflects my life's work, helping our young people and young at heart identify mental health challenges, disrupt negative patterns, and discover the best versions of themselves. I'm so happy that you've joined us. For over 20 years, I want you to know that I've had my finger on the pulse of BIPOC teen mental health. I recognize that historically and currently, with these dual pandemics of COVID and racial injustice raging, our young people are suffering, sometimes they're struggling, and always the care that they need is quite scarce. So each week, I'm joined by young people, mental health experts, celebrities, and influencers to help us uncover the secrets to healing the hearts and minds of our BIPOC teens, their families, and their communities. Here at Couched in Color, we believe deeply in spreading love and light, bolstered by culturally relevant science. So let's dive in. Shira Lazar, this beautiful human being. Every time I think about how we met, I feel like a rock star. So I'm like, yeah, I know, like cool, like famous people. Like, ooh, they're like, I'm
hilarious.
Cool too. So Shira is here with me today on Couched in Color. You see, we have a new set.
Yes.
And a new, right? Yay! Right. I used to have a purple couch. I got to figure out how to get my purple couch up in here. But since quarantine, we have to do everything Zoom. Everybody has Zoom fatigue. So I just want to welcome Shira and thank her from like the deepest part of my spirit for being here. I want her to introduce herself, but what I wanted to tell you all is I'll tell the story how we met because it's cool, but first I want Shira to introduce herself and then tell us about all these amazing things that she's involved in, and then we're going to see where the conversation goes, talking about mental health. So Shira Lazar, please introduce yourself to all the good people.
Well, first, Dr. Alfie, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. I look up to you, and you are a rock star in my books. So I'm just saying that, and you should have to see the ring she has on her finger, not your actual wedding ring. This one, you have like this crazy, I don't know, black sparkly thing. It's beautiful. Yeah. She always looks amazing. Well, I'm like in PJs when I interview her sometimes on my radio show. So I appreciate you for having me on. And yeah, I co-founded What's Trending, which is a pop culture, digital culture publisher. And it was a show when we started it in 2011. So that is still somehow running. I don't even know how, through many ups and downs. And then 2 years ago, I started co-hosting an afternoon drive radio show for the first LGBTQ plus music talk station called Channel Q. We are syndicated across the country with radio.com and also streaming, obviously, on the app as well. And then through my passion around personal growth and mindfulness tools, I started with a friend of mine, something called Peace Inside Live in Quarantine, which is a virtual platform around mindfulness meditation and movement with donation-based classes, workshops, community conversations. And so, yeah, it's been a wild ride. I definitely keep myself busy, but I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of curiosity and passion, and I just try to figure out ways to express that and share that with people.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So I have to tell you, I don't know if I'd like texted you this or emailed you this. Maybe like January, February, I was at the gas station and don't you know, I saw What's Trending. I was like, I know her.
Yeah.
I know her. I was so excited. So like, it's like clearly everywhere. And I love how you describe what you do. And I think what would really help, as women, one of the things I'm really conscious of is this thing about stepping into your power and owning your power. And just listening to you talk about all the things that you do, I hear a lot, two things it makes me think of. One is I hear a lot of intent around outwardly sort of sharing, I don't know if the spotlight or sunshine or the light, or like really like sort of what emanates from you is a lot of light. Like you want to help people and you want to support people, right? Like just thinking about the We Are Channel Q, the show that you do with Ryan and what that's about. As well as Peace Inside Live, and you talked about mindfulness. So I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit about two things, and you take it wherever direction you want. One is this idea of, as a woman, a young woman, how do you step into your power in a way that allows you to go out and bring to fruition these ideas? Because a lot of us have ideas, but seriously, a lot of us have ideas, but we don't do all this stuff. And so that's one. And then secondly, the focus. How did the focus become so much on supporting and helping other people, being intersectional intentionally, right? Because I participate in the weekly event. But you just tell us a little bit about
I just got chills. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got chills and I feel emotional because Dr. Alfie, thank you for seeing me always. And that means a lot because, and I try not to put my self-worth on like getting that validation from other people. It just feels good when the effort you put out there and your intention gets seen and understood, because so many times it can be misunderstood.
Yes.
And so I acknowledge when there's that in existence. You need to acknowledge that for yourself, because a lot of us, you know, and it's not about being narcissistic or egotistical. It's saying that, you know, we've all fought in different spaces and we all have dreams and ambitions. And when someone sees that, you got to acknowledge it. When someone recognizes progress, right?
Yes.
You got to say yes and receive that and thank you. And I know. I think that's so important. And until you can, you actually don't know. That's like right. you don't fully acknowledge yourself in that and not receiving that. So thank you. And whatever that means to anyone listening, because we all have that thing for us that we're working hard on. Yes. And yet we can't take the acknowledgement when it's given. So yeah, I'm like, so one, I appreciate you for saying I'm young.
Girl, you younger than me. I'm telling you.
But I am. And I talk about it. Listen, I tried to change my Wikipedia. An intern tried to change it a while back. When I turned 30, I was like, just try to change it. Because because I've been in the media and digital media business for so long, whenever people would write articles, I was really proud of my age, how young I was. Like at the age of 25, she's done this. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, now there's a history of my age. Like people know. And so, yeah, I'm 37. I'm turning 38 next year in May. So very soon, but I still feel very young at heart. Yes. And it's been an interesting journey. I think that my background has always been in interviewing people. And I think that part of that was saying that, like, I don't need necessarily the spotlight to be on me. Like, I'm curious and I want to make other people feel good about their stories and seen and heard. Yes. Right. And I was always doing that, you know, as I came up and I started doing that with the digital culture space and YouTube stars and social media stars. This is before it was like as mainstream as it is. Got it. They were like the underdogs of the broadcasting business. And I felt like I wanted to put a spotlight on those folks who were doing it themselves, who were part of this, like, emerging DIY movement. Yeah. And bring them the red carpets that they deserved, right? Because mainstream media wasn't looking at them seriously. And I wanted to give them that recognition. And so you could say, like, when I look back, I feel like I was always doing that in a way, like sharing the mic, passing the mic. And then that evolved as digital media started getting to where it is right now. Yeah. It became more part of pop culture, and it became, I feel like, a bit more superficial. And so, a little bit. And there's a lot of good stuff around it. A lot of people are doing incredible impact-based things. But I started seeing, like, it wasn't really aligning with that vision anymore. Yep. It wasn't feeling as good in that way. And so I think that over 2 years ago, I started saying to myself, okay, my filter needs to be, I love pop culture. I see the power of pop culture, but I want it to be pop culture for impact, right? Media for impact. And, like, oddly enough, as I put that intention out there, Channel Q came in. And when Channel Q came in, a lot of people wonder, like, oh, are you gay? They think I'm gay because I'm part of an LGBTQ plus station. I'm like one of the only, you could say, allies of the station. Yes. But you don't need to be gay to be part of, obviously, that's like a queer station. That's right. If anything, though, I'm the other there, which was a beautiful experience. It has been to be in that situation, because to really understand what advocacy is, right? Yes. And so many conversations that people are having right now, I feel like I have been having those conversations. Yep. I've been in the trenches of seeing the communities that aren't heard or seen, whose rights are being taken away from them. Yes. And to really understand that, not just as an ally going to events and posting things on social media, but getting really deep in conversations and having good friends who are scared and angry, and I feel their hurt, and you're seeing it firsthand. It's just like, it's different than it being as much of an outsider, I guess, or saying, like, understanding it because you're a human who has compassion and empathy. So you understand what's happening, but then being more entrenched in it has been a really different eye-opening experience that I'm
Yes.
super grateful for.
Yes.
And so I think that for me, even like at the beginning, when I was trying to be on air and people would ask me what I do, I was like, oh, I'm a host. And they'd say, well, what do you host?
What?
And
Right.
it was like, and I was never being hired necessarily. And I did have bigger jobs and gigs with mainstream media, CBS News, Court TV at the time. This is really weird. Headline news.
Right.
And all that. But it's not like I was like, yeah, I'm hosting the show that you know, right? But no matter what I claimed, that was what I was and what I was doing before someone else could claim it for me. I was like, I'm claiming it for myself.
Oh, can you
speak
tell me a little bit more about that? Because before someone else was claiming it for you, because I think that's a really powerful message, especially for women. Yeah.
I think I always said to myself, like, well, where do you see yourself? What do you want? And I think it's important to be very specific. You know, we all talk about manifestation and vision boards and all that. I think that's great. But I also think sometimes when we're so specific and like, I do believe in visualizing it. Where do you want to be? What is that? You know, having mentors, having people you look up to.
Yes.
I was also sometimes high level about it because I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into my limiting beliefs based on that thing. Because if you envision something, you could say it's still limited. Because you can't even see what's bigger than what you know, right? Yes. So if, you know, I would say to myself, yeah, I want to be, at the time, a host. I want to be a broadcaster. I didn't know what that meant, but I loved interviewing people.
Yes.
I got a high. So at that point, I recognized my feeling when I did it. So I was more connected to my feeling as I was navigating.
Yes.
And then once again, I wasn't waiting for someone to hire me to do it, to say that now I am that. I was saying, I am that, and this is how I'm going to show up. And you take it or leave it. So that was always like my mindset. I mean, I had a website for myself in 2000 when I graduated from college. This is aging myself. In 2004, I had ShiraLazar.com where I had a blog and everyone was like, well, what are you selling? Like, why do you have a website? Of course, this is normal now, right?
Yes, very.
Yes, of course. But then they're like, who's hiring you to do all this stuff? And I'm like, hiring me? I mean, I'm doing it because this is what I do, and I'm not going to wait for someone to hire me to do it.
Yes.
And people didn't get it at the time. Now people get it. And so I think I was playing around with building the brand of me even then, which is interesting because I had a sense, and now that as I get older, I have intuition about movements or trends.
Yes.
I trust myself that I'm onto something, but it took a few cycles to get there, to have that trust. Because when you're younger, you have that, but you don't get that that's your intuition.
That's it.
You don't get that that's you telling yourself something and you should trust it. And there's something there until you see the results of it. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then maybe it needs to happen again. Where you're like, okay, I'm going after this. And then that thing comes to fruition or it comes full circle. And then you go, wait a second, I did that again. Like I had a thought about something. It felt right. And I did it. And like, that was the thing. And you're like, okay. And then the third time you're like, okay, I see the pattern here. Like I see things and feel things that make sense for me
that's right.
Are part, you know, and for me it is, and everyone has a different thing. For me, it is seeing movements and emerging cultures and, communities and like what's the next
yes.
And at the time the next was digital social media. That was the revolution.
Got it.
And I think that that was it. And I saw different ones playing in that. Then I saw in the social media revolution, I saw every platform evolve. And then more recently, I guess the past 3-4 years, for me it was personal growth and spiritual growth. And I was doing all that stuff behind the scenes, right?
Yes.
Like I would do workshops and I would do all this stuff. And my close friends knew about this. I would have dinners and I would share these thoughts, but I was never sharing it on my personal social media or within my work because I wasn't ready to own that. I was still, and the minute I stepped into that and claimed that and spoke my truth, I was fully embodying my truth.
Yes.
And that there's a difference. Like, I do believe in like full integration of your life, right? It's
Yes.
and we tend to silo it, and because that's how we were raised and that's what we've known. I have my work life, my personal life. Of course, you have boundaries around things,
Mm-hmm.
and not everything is going to be all overly connected. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think the more that you are the foundation, and then everything's an expression of that,
Mm-hmm.
that is healthy, and that allows you to be more flexible. Whereas if your work and the thing outside of you is your foundation, and then you are the or expression of that,
Yes.
that
That's
is weird, because then
backwards.
you're relying on that. Yeah, you're relying on that for who you are.
That's right. That's right. So I love
Sorry, that was like a long rant.
no, it wasn't. It was like, it was perfect, because I think what's really important in what you're saying is that as a very young woman, right? Let's say a very young woman, you were like in your 20s.
I was like 22. Yeah, when I
Right.
got here at 21. Yeah.
Right. You're realizing that you should trust your intuition, and you branded yourself, right? And you said, and there was something that told you, go brand yourself, even if you didn't know that that's what it was called. You knew that you needed to go do that thing.
Yeah. Well, even like my first job out of college, I got very lucky. I got a gig. I was an associate producer doing this show. And then even that producer liked me so much, she wanted me to continue working with her. But I remember we were casting reality shows.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of them was like a real life Golden Girls.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So I know. So I'm like at these like casinos casting old people, like reality shows. Like, it's so strange. I remember calling my dad being like, he's like, how are you? I'm like, to be honest, like I'm not enjoying this. And he's like, welcome to real life, Shira. Welcome to adult life. And I'm
Yes.
like, and I was like, already? Like,
Yes.
no, it can't be this shitty. Like,
Right.
I can't hate my work and my life. Like, no, I deserve better. And I remember that really stood out, where I was like, no, sorry, Dad, if you're listening, like, but you're also the inspiration, your
Right.
harsh words. But I remember after that, I was like, no, like, I want to love what I'm doing. Like, I want to enjoy things. And of course, it's not always unicorns and butterflies, as you know, like,
Right.
it's hard and challenging.
Right.
But I also want to be fighting for something. Like,
Yep.
there needs to be a bigger vision outside of me that I really believe in, to push through those hard times. And like, that wasn't it. That wasn't the bigger vision I was fighting
You weren't
for.
feeling that. No, I
And
get it.
and so I just like, I moved towards, and once again, I think that I moved towards what felt good, what felt exciting. And when I was younger, it's kind of like love. I described it like I was falling in love. I would get an adrenaline rush. And I got a physical reaction to the things that felt right for me to do. I think as I've gone older, what's interesting is it's gone definitely like that excitement when you meet someone, or you have that good flow with someone you're talking to. It could be a partner or a lover or a best friend. But then also now, as I get older, what I find is I'm not just wanting the adrenaline rush, I'm wanting peace. It to be just like light and peace.
Amen.
And so that's what I know, when something feels right, when it just feels like there's an ease to it and a flow to it. Whereas I think when I was younger, I was like fighting a bit against the tide.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And because I didn't know any better, and because I was like, but I need to fight for what I want. And yes, you do. But then also, like, that's where, as you get older, that wisdom where you're like, okay, well, wherever you're supposed to land is going to be where you land. And you got to trust and surrender to that, while putting in the intention and of course, the hard work.
That's right.
But it doesn't need to be hard. Like,
I love it.
It doesn't need to be hard. So I try to remind myself of that.
I think as you talk about that, it reminds me of like two things in particular. One was how easy it was to connect when we met last year, where we met. So I feel like has it only been like a year and a half? And I feel like I've known you for a really long time. You know what I mean? And when you were so nice, and I was in there, and I'm gonna be honest, I was really kind of starstruck. This was, so for folks who don't know, this was this thing called Soul Pancake.
That was a cool event. There was a lot of good people.
Oh my God. Shouts out to, I'm not going to say her name right. Falayo. She was the person who put it all together. So shouts out to her. And she's like going to be so excited, because so many of us have stayed connected. And so the new friends I made from that event were you and Ron Funches. And y'all are just.
Oh my God, Ron. Oh yes. Oh my God. He's amazing.
He was the host.
I missed that.
So sweet.
I missed him. I didn't get to talk to him yet.
So, just talking to you, I remember you said something about my dress, and my girlfriend Adina made the dress. You're like, oh my God, that dress is so beautiful. I was like, do you like this? Do you want one? You were like, yeah. And you were like, let me give you my number. I was like, wait a minute. Famous people do this? Like, they just give their phone number? Like, what is this? Like, I was just so I was just like, so my head was just like, what? And so I thought it was really cool that we connected so easily. And I have to say, the thing that my daughter got out of the whole thing was I think his name is Chris Wood. I wasn't aware, like, he's an actor. My mom was like, oh my God, Mom, do you know who you met? And I was like, yeah, I met this cool lady named Shira, and I met this guy named Ron Funches, and they're awesome. And so it was just, I think part of what you just shared about light and peace, and that being sort of the driving force. And I listened to, some people everybody's not into her, but I listened to Abraham Hicks. And one of the things I get from that is the flow, like the downstream. Stop trying to swim upstream, right?
Yeah.
Because just like you said, whatever that thing is that you want, or you want to have, or you want to be, it's already there. You just got to let yourself float down into it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I just got chills because, my company, What's Trending, is a very good exercise of that. And the gift, it's brought me many headaches and / gifts. Because listen, we've had years where we're making 7 figures and then I lose everything and I'm almost bankrupt. Like the lessons the universe has taught me with that company, they're like, we're serving this up. Are you ready? Serving up hot. And every time I finally like let go, where I was like, I've had it where I'm like, I'm not going to force this anymore. And it found itself again. It was kind of like watering a plant where you just like leave it out where it's supposed to just live, and and it found itself. And that was like last year for me was a really difficult year. Yeah. And that's why this year, I mean, thankfully I'm very grateful. Like it's much better than it was last year. Cause I like literally my relationship fell apart. Yeah. My business fell apart. My personal income fell apart. It was like the first time where everything at once, it was like, let's clean this slate. And then you question who you are again and why you're doing everything.
That's right.
And so I remember finally, like, I'm going to make this easier. Like, cause I thought to myself, like, what is stressing me out here? And it was like, a big part of it was around, money, of like, okay, I have all these bills. I have this lifestyle I've kept up. Like, this is a stress, and like my company, like my employees I had, the amount we were spending. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to simplify. What do I need that's at minimum to do and spend? And I'm going to just go there and I'm going to get over myself, humble myself. I'm going to move and rent from my friend and move into his house, which is, by the way, a nice house. Like, that's nothing to, undermine. But, I wanted my bachelorette pad where I can bring people over and people would be like, oh my God, your place is so amazing.
Right, girl. Yes. I know what you mean.
Wanted that. And I had the vision also when you're like 36, like I also had a bit in my head of like, I didn't expect to be here in my life at this point. Yes. There was like that also feeling of guilt and shame. Yes. And regret in a way, like going back to everything that has happened to get you there. And you're like, okay. But the minute I kind of humbled myself and said, okay, like I'm going to minimize and simplify and just let things fall as they fall. And but while being responsible, right. And intentional, but the company kind of found itself again. And then over, this year ended up like figuring itself out and making revenue without me struggling and like pitching and like doing all this stuff that was just like taking energy out of my soul and my spirit. And I was like, wow. And for the first time, I also wasn't doing it to like get the headlines. I wasn't doing it to be showy. I was just doing it because like, I was like, this thing exists. It's like my child and I'm not going to do it for others. I'm just going to like keep it low key, and in keeping it low key and just letting it do its thing, it blossoms. Yes. And that was like fascinating. I was like, wow, finally, like we know the analogy, like when you're holding onto something so tight, you can't make room for other things. When you open it up and let it go, whatever comes that's meant to come to your hand will. Your plate. You're like, emptying your plate for other things. Yes. So that was a big reminder, realization, definitely.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I know I can stay here and talk to you all day.
I'm like, oh, right? What else can we talk about?
Right, we can talk all day. But as we're closing, one thing I want to end on a high note. But before we go to the high note, I do want to ask, talk to me, if you wouldn't mind talking to me a little bit about, because this is something I think about a lot. The things that we have to let go of, like you just said, it's such a perfect segue to make room for the better stuff. Like you talk a little bit about like the process of being comfortable with some stuff can't grow. Like there's this one of Beyonce's songs on the Lion King album. It was something like, I'm not going to get it right, but it was sort of like the friends can't go where she's going. Like there's some friends who are not going to be able to elevate to where she's going to next. And that's okay. And I heard that and it just kind of hit me and I was like, ouch. You know what I mean? And so I wonder if on your journey, there are
Yeah.
experiences you've had where when you opened your hand, you realize that, oh, there's some things that I'm not going to be able to hold on to, and how you may have made or may not make peace with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's powerful. We all know that if your plate is full, you're not going to be able to bring new stuff in. Right. And
Yep.
so a lot of times it's choosing what's relevant still to you and what's not relevant. And just because it was relevant last week, yesterday, it's like we're always evolving. And so recognizing that and that it's okay, but we tend to get very attached, right? Including, by the way, if we got good results from that,
Yep.
right? Because
Especially. Yes.
especially, which
Yes.
is odd. And then on the other hand, when we didn't, if we have a bit of guilt and we want to people please, right?
Yes.
And we want everyone to be okay, that's hard too.
Yes.
Because you don't want in letting go, you don't want someone to think you're a horrible person.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like, I think it's balancing the compassion for yourself and kindness for yourself and non-judgment to yourself and others.
Yes.
And it's not about being like, I think that whole phrase sometimes gets thought of like, you're not good enough for me anymore. And it's not about that. It's about saying that things evolve, people change, and it's okay.
Yes.
Right. And we don't need to judge it at all. Right. If the energy flows in that direction, great. If it doesn't, and you, by the way, bump into them on the street, doesn't mean you're not going to say hi.
That's
Or
right.
send them a lot of love. Or if they
That's right.
pop up in your mind, you might not recognize and hold your heart and say like, wow, oh, or check in.
Right.
Maybe you're not going to have a coffee or a multi-hour drinks with them.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
I think like we tend to then we create such boxes because we're so worried
Yes.
about those boundaries.
Yes.
And I just say like, let it go. Like if it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel right. And of course, if someone like rattles you and triggers you and isn't good for you, create a boundary around it.
Yes.
But if something just like falls off your radar, don't kill yourself about it. Right? Because that's just life.
Yes.
We can't do everything at once. And guess what? A lot of times we also overthink like what someone's thinking about us when they're just handling their own shit.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like,
Exactly.
everyone is just trying to figure out, and that's where like it becomes a bit of an egocentric move, right?
Yes.
Where we're like, oh, well, what are they going to think of me? And yeah, they might be thinking some things of you, but like they're also dealing with their own stuff.
Yes.
And half the times they're thinking, what is she thinking about me?
That's
or
right.
They,
That's right.
So
of course.
I think it's just, once again, it comes back to realizing, slowing down and being still enough to realize that you can choose.
Yeah.
And really dropping into what feels good and what doesn't feel good anymore. And what just doesn't resonate.
I love that. See, now you don't even know you helping me with this thing that I'm dealing with right now. It's like work, it's work stuff. And it's like the bridge between my old life and my new life. And everything that you're saying, it's just like, I've been kind of struggling with this thing and like fighting. So I'm like, no, because there's a part of my life where there was one area in my career where I was just fight. Like I had to fight so hard. And then I was just like, I don't want to fight like this anymore. So I left it, right? Mm-hmm. And now I feel that there are aspects of it that are sort of calling me, but I don't think they're calling me for the right reasons. I think they're showing up to give me an opportunity to say that I'm ready to let them go.
Yeah, there is that. There is a bit of that. I think things will show up. Like for instance, in the analogy, or like when this happens in dating, like when you have the guys or whatever you're attracted to, that are, and for me, it's guys. Okay. And sometimes women, but from my experience, the guys that were toxic, right?
Yes.
And then you're like, I'm finally ready to let it go. And then you meet a person that's incredible. And then the universe will throw these toxic folks at you to see, have you really learned your lesson?
that part.
And then, and it's, and you know what, if it's part of your journey to learn again, that it is, but hopefully it's been reinforced and you get to make that decision that's healthy and good for you.
Yes.
But sometimes, you need to learn.
Yes.
Again. And that is what it is. And it's just like, you can't kill yourself about that as well.
Right. Oh, I love that. That is such a perfect way to sort of wind this down, because it's wisdom for me and it's reinforcement for me. It's just reinforced. It's like, and I love what you said about like right before that, like my paraphrasing is, you got to be ready to just acknowledge it. Do you know what I'm saying? And then just let it go. Just open your
anger,
hand.
yeah. The anger, frustration, resentment that's, I think gets held in your body and your spirit. And thrown out to the universe in sometimes this process, I think it really could hurt you and others in the process of letting go and figuring out where you want to land.
Yes.
So but of course that comes up, right? Including with things from our past that didn't work, right?
Yes.
But I think if we can process that and grieve it.
Yes.
There's a bit of a grieving process of things that just didn't work out.
Totally. And I think a relationship. You have to walk through the grief, right? Because there's happiness and joy and peace and growth on the other side. But if you stay stuck in front of the grief, trying to keep it away, you don't allow yourself the growth.
And if you reference those things like with anger and frustration and resentment, that's actually part of your plate.
That's it.
And so you're not gonna be able to walk to the other side and while you think, well, I've let it go. You haven't.
Right.
Because you still have energy attached to it. And that energy is distracting you from where you get to put your focus.
That's right. So the bad energy is keeping you from the good energy that's ready to come to you. So this has been wonderful, amazing. You are such a bright light. I don't say that easily, and I don't say that just to everybody, but you truly are a light, Shira. And I am just so pleased and happy and grateful that the universe brought us into each other's lives. Honestly, it's just been such a pleasure to know you over the last 18 to 24 months. And I'm just like, she's amazing. And so you look at me and there's admiration. I truly have admiration for you and everything that you do, because you do try to create a world where everybody feels included. And I'm always thinking of this authentic allyship. When I think of Shira Lazar, I think of authentic allyship. And that's hard. It is hard to come by because so many people want to be allies, but they don't really know how to show up. And I feel like everything that you do, just sort of bookend it, I see you in the same way that I hope you will see yourself, which is as an authentic ally. Authentic. It's not performative. It is authentic. And I really do feel that. So I want to ask you.
Oh my God, you're going to make me cry.
That's all right, because I cry all the time.
I know, this is beautiful. I mean, and by the way, I'm not perfect, but thank you for recognizing that what I hope I do. And that's all we can do is continue learning and show up the way that feels right.
Thank you so much. So in closing, will you please tell everyone where they can find you, all the places they can find you?
Yes, of course. Well, at Shira Lazar everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff. If you're interested in what's trending, at what's trending everywhere, whatstrending.com. Channelq.com is where you can find my radio show weekdays where Dr. Alfie is a guest a lot. And we also have a podcast, Let's Go There. It's the show and the podcast. And then finally, Peace Inside Live, where we offer donation-based free Zoom sessions around mindfulness, meditation, and movement. Please join our community, test out these classes, see what's possible for you, what resonates. And I love the idea of bringing these tools to people because it's so needed, including right now as our world is so uncertain and chaotic. Let's create some inner peace for ourselves.
I love it. Well, thank you, Shira Lazar, so much. Again, it has been a pleasure. I don't want to belabor the point, and I will look forward to the next time we get to be together.
Of course. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So there you have it. That's a wrap for another episode of Couched in Color. We want you to know that we deeply value you, all of our viewers and our listeners, and everyone out there working to support optimal mental health, both for themselves and for our young people. And one of the best ways you can help our movement is by leaving us a 5-star review on our YouTube channel and everywhere you enjoy your audio podcasts, and by sharing our podcast with a friend. Please also tag us while you're out there listening and watching. Finally, head on over to dralfie.com for more information about me, www.acomaproject.org for information about my nonprofit, and those are the places you can go to learn more about how you can help. So I'll see you next week. And until then, I'm going to say what I always say, which is that I'm wishing you lots of love, lots of light, and that I'm hoping it is always, always informed by good, culturally relevant science. Take care.